Today marks 1 week of the war in the Middle East. 7 days of US and Israeli strikes targeting Iran, and 7 days also of Tehran retaliating with attacks across West Asia. Let's put the focus on the human cost of this conflict because it's been immense. Everyone's been talking about precision strikes, but let's face it, there have been civilian casualties. In Iran, the death toll has surged, and the maximum death toll has been reported from Iran, where the death toll has surged to 1,230, making it the worst affected country in the war so far, considering Iran is being targeted by Israel and America. Then you have Lebanon, where Israel has been targeting Hezbollah positions. 102 people have been killed, 638 injured. As far as Israel goes, which has also been bombarded by counter-strikes by Iran, Israel has reported 11 deaths. 11 people have died, more than 100 injured in Iranian missile and drone attacks. In the UAE, 3 people have been killed, 78 injured. I will run you through the rest of the Middle East there. Kuwait has reported 4 deaths, 35 injured. Bahrain, 1 death, 4 injuries. Oman also 1 person killed and 5 injured. In Iraq, 2 people have been killed, 7 injured. In Qatar, there's been confirmation that 16 people have been injured. This is what, in fact, the number of casualties of the war looks like. It's Iran that's been the worst hit, but many other countries also that are seeing casualties being reported. Unfortunately, as the war continues, 7 days and counting, you're going to see those numbers going up further. Let's cut across to breaking news coming in. And amid the raging war, Iran is staying defiant. Iran's President Pezeshkian has issued a fresh statement saying, "We don't have the slightest hesitation in defending the dignity and authority of our country." Iran's president says, "Our response is clear. We're committed to lasting peace in the region." That's the message that's coming in from Pezeshkian. Remember, Iran has maintained that they are open to talks, they're open to negotiation, but they maintain that it must happen with dignity. And the Iranian president again highlighting that we are defending the dignity of our country and we will continue to do so. Iran isn't backing off in any way, and that's very clear in the message that's now come in from the Iranian President Pezeshkian as well. Kicking off 2026, it's been a conflict-ridden year. We've seen what happened in Venezuela and the ongoing war in Iran. Amid that, US President Donald Trump is focusing on another territory, thousands of kilometers from his country. We're talking about Cuba. It's got a frosty relationship with the United States, and that could be the next target of President Trump. Why are we saying this? Because the US president himself said that Cuba is just a matter of time. Could another long-standing geopolitical flashpoint soon return to Washington's focus? Let's get you details in our next report about the signals coming in from the White House and what they could mean for global power politics.
He ordered the capture of Venezuela's strongman Nicolas Maduro, triggering a dramatic regime change in Caracas. And now in Iran, Donald Trump is trying to do the same. With the assassination of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Washington's war on Iran is aimed at reshaping the power structure in Tehran. But the next geopolitical background could be just in the US backyard. US President Donald Trump has suggested that once the war with Iran is over, Washington's attention should shift to Cuba.
What's happening with Cuba is amazing, and we think that we want to finish this one first, but that will be just a question of time before you and a lot of unbelievable people are going to be going back to Cuba. Hopefully not to stay. We want you back, and we don't want to lose you. We don't want to make it so nice that they stay. But some people probably do want to stay. They love Cuba so much. I hear it all the time. That was another one that wasn't supposed to happen.
Relations between the United States and the communist-ruled island have historically been tense, and ties have further deteriorated during Trump's second term. But despite the hostility, Cuba continues to remain strategically important to Washington. Cuba is believed to have rich offshore oil reserves, and the worry for United States is that China has been increasing its investments in Cuban ports. There are also long-standing concerns in Washington about Russian intelligence facilities in Cuba monitoring US naval activity. The island nation also holds large nickel reserves, a resource critical for defense manufacturing and advanced industries. And beyond geopolitics, Cuba's tourism potentially makes it one of the most economically significant islands in the Caribbean. For now, Washington's focus remains firmly on Iran, but Trump's comments show that Cuba, for a long point of friction between the two countries, is still very much on the US's strategic radar. Bureau Report, India Today.
Is this then a possibility that in the coming 1 month we could see US also taking on Cuba? I'll bring in Pranay Upadhyay of India Today Global with us on this broadcast, also Sandeep Punithan with us with more details on this. Pranay, you know, very often you hear these kind of statements from Trump. Sometimes he's serious, sometimes you take it with a pinch of salt. In this particular case, what makes experts really believe that this is a very real possibility that Trump could go after Cuba next?
If you see the global power map of United States, as US Secretary of War said, just a few hours ago, that United States is the only global power and we are going to assert as per our strategy. When President Donald Trump talks about Monroe Doctrine, now he has recoined it or rechristened it into a Dunro Doctrine, and he talks about America's area of influence, the sphere of influence, and he claims that the Western Hemisphere should be in American influence. What exactly does he mean? He means that, the Latin American region, be it Venezuela, be it Cuba, be it Caribbean countries, this all started in his tenure with the Panama Canal, and with Panama, him asserting on Panama Canal and terming the Gulf of Mexico as Gulf of America. These are not random claims. This is actually his assertion, and that's why Cuba fits into this entire scheme of things. And if you see, United States has not withdrawn its military asset from its southern command. The Operation Southern Spear is still on. The US naval ships are still, deployed and exercising a cordon in that area, and in fact, they are blocking the shipping movement in that entire region. Ships going towards Venezuela or coming out of Venezuela are only passing through the US, US permission. So clearly, United States has built up a military pressure in that region, and in fact, he always keeps many cards on the table, and he decides to pick up which card, because you will remember that at a time when he was commenting on Iranian protest, and he said that we are locked, loaded, and ready to go. Within like 24 hours, he took action against Venezuela. When people were expecting that he is focusing on Greenland, he turned towards Iran. So like many things are happening on the map, and President Donald Trump decides on multiple strategies and at any given point of time.
Why Cuba is, I think, a question that many ask, Sandeep, but we also have to highlight here that in the last many years, Donald Trump has repeatedly spoken, again, very similar to what's happening in Venezuela and Iran, of regime change in Cuba. So that could, in a way, be a hint that he's serious about taking on Cuba as well.
Absolutely, Akshita, and you have to understand that Cuba has been out of the American orbit. The so-called Monroe Doctrine that Pranay mentioned, Cuba has been out of the US orbit since 1959. Now, Donald Trump was a 13-year-old schoolboy when a pro-US government there was overthrown and Fidel Castro took over. That's how long back it was. Trump is going to be 80 years old today. Just to give your viewers an idea of how long Cuba has been out. So Cuba has been the so-called thorn in the side of the American flesh for a very long time. It's just about 160 kilometers away from the United States. It was a pro-Soviet enclave. Now it's very close to Russia as well. But Cuba's fate has been linked with Venezuela so directly in a way as never before in the past. In January, Trump imposed that executive order cutting off all fuel to Cuba. In fact, imposing a blockade of sorts. It's put Cuba in a kind of economic crisis that they've not seen in several decades. Cuba is extremely shaky now, and the larger picture, Akshita, is that Trump has done what no American president has done in a very long time. In just 2 months, he's gone after 3 regimes that have been, if you can use that expression, a thorn in the side of the American flesh. Iran, Venezuela, and now Cuba. In just 2 months of 2026, unprecedented, 2 regime changes. There's one, Maduro has been hijacked, kidnapped and taken to the United States. Khamenei has been assassinated. And now Miguel Canal would be very worried about what's ahead. But that's the Dunro doctrine, as Pranay mentioned, Akshita.
And in fact, Greenland is still not off from his radar because, on 14th of February, on Valentine's Day, he posted a picture of Greenland and, put his heart and American flag in that.
Yeah, so you never really know with Donald Trump, nothing's off the table. And that's why we've also referred to it as a war calendar of sorts as far as Donald Trump is concerned. In 2026, he's literally started things off with a bang. So will April be the month of Cuba for Donald Trump is the big question mark right now. He's definitely indicating towards it with the statement that he has made. But let's get to that news break. Iranian media has now claimed an advanced US drone has been shot down. Reports suggesting that Iranian air defense forces shot down an advanced American MQ-9 Reaper drone near one of the cities in western Iran. Iranian media has also put out an image, that's the picture on your screens there, of the destroyed US drone. Now, there are a lot of claims, counterclaims doing the rounds. Looking at that picture that Iran has put out, this is the evidence that they say of the drone being destroyed. Sandeep, explain this to us. First of all, of course, just looking at that debris, quite difficult to really tell if it is indeed a US drone. But run us through the significance of something like this, that an advanced American MQ-9 Reaper drone has been shot down, if it has indeed been.
Well, if those visuals are correct, Akshita, then that is indeed the first MQ-9 that Iran has shot down as part of this conflict. There have been reports of Iran bringing down several advanced drones as well. A Global Hawk is believed to have been brought down some months back. But this conflict has actually shown up this particular platform, Akshita. The Houthis have succeeded in shooting down several of these MQ-9 drones, the Reaper drones. Now, they are designed for an entirely different kind of conflict. They made their debut during the global war on terror that the United States waged from 2001 to about 2021, where they were used for a lot of high-profile assassinations. These Reaper drones were carrying Hellfire missiles, and based on intelligence, they could go and pinpoint the location of people and assassinate them. So that's what they were used for. The drone strikes, it actually originated from drones like this. But this one was clearly, seemed to be a reconnaissance drone. It is a very capable platform. It's almost the one of a kind. India has also gone in for several of these. We are planning to buy them for all 3 services. There's a very large package of over $3 billion that we're spending to buy 20 or 30 of these drones. It is what is called a high-altitude, long-endurance drone, which means that it can stay in orbit for like 27 hours or so, more than a day. So it's a very capable, long-endurance, high impact platform. It carries a variety of sensors. It's literally the size of an aircraft, except that it's unmanned. But the fact that Iran has brought it down, I think the bigger picture here is that Iran retains some element of air defense capability, which it can use to target drones, because it's been under unprecedented attack over the last 6 days. Most of its air defenses have been neutralized. But this shows, if these visuals are correct, this shows that it retains some element of capability to attack aircraft and drones, Akshita.
Okay, thanks very much, Sandeep, for joining us with those details. Iran claiming that they've now shot down a Reaper drone. As Sandeep tells us, it's largely a recon drone that's now been targeted by Iran. That's a picture that they've released. Iran has released as evidence, saying that's the debris of the MQ-9 drone by America. Now, let's also put the focus on all the reactions that have been coming in the last 24 hours. Donald Trump claims the United States and Israel, they're winning this war, hands down. But as the conflict drags on, there has been criticism of Washington's action. It's growing louder and something that Trump cannot afford to ignore. Why is that? Because these are Gulf allies who are now calling out Donald Trump, who are calling out America. Several NATO member states have already expressed concerns over the U.S.'s strategy. Gulf nations, many of which have been facing Iranian retaliation of U.S. bases in their soil, are voicing their displeasure. They say there was no prior warning whatsoever. They were not given adequate time to prepare. They were exposed to this retaliation. And they also said that U.S. was completely focused on how to plan this mission with Israel. And so essentially the messaging from these Gulf nations is that you chose Israel over giving us a heads up. And these regional warnings, which were given by Gulf countries that things would escalate, it won't be limited to just US, Iran, Israel. Those warnings, allies believe, were completely ignored. The risk of escalation completely ignored. Many believe that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu may have dragged Donald Trump into a conflict that the region never wanted. And this is something that's been a big scope of, in fact, debate, that Donald Trump was essentially dragged into this conflict and not with his eyes fully wide open, that he didn't know the repercussions of what would happen and the fact that this would escalate in the manner that it has and expand into so many and spill into so many other countries, many of whom are strong allies of America. One of the other impacts of this war in the last 7 days has been, of course, flight movement. Airspaces have been shut down as a result of all the drone and missile strikes, and it's paralyzed aviation corridors. Drone attacks, sweeping airspace closures across West Asia have forced airlines to cancel thousands of flights, and that's led to a huge hit for global aviation. Indian carriers too have been hit hard. Let's break down for you in our next report how the war is turning the region's skies into a global aviation crisis.
The unforgettable visuals of the world's second busiest international airport, Dubai, under attack by Iranian drones. For 6 days now, it has been shut to flights with massive global repercussions. The Iran war is now sending shockwaves far beyond the battlefield into one of the world's most critical economic arteries, global aviation. West Asia is the crossroads of global air travel, and right now, that crossroads looks more like a dead end. Airspace closures across Iran, the Gulf, and surrounding regions have forced airlines worldwide to cancel thousands of flights and reroute aircraft far away from the very region. The numbers are staggering. More than 27,000 flights have been cancelled to West Asia's major hubs. Hundreds of thousands of passengers have been left stranded, and key air corridors across the Gulf are now off limits. Major transit hubs like Dubai, Doha and Abu Dhabi, the beating heart of a long-haul aviation, and hubs of giant carriers Emirates, Qatar Airways and Etihad have been shut or severely restricted, sending shockwaves through airline schedules worldwide. With West Asian airspace closed, airlines are being forced to take massive detours. Flights from Europe to India, Southeast Asia and Australia are now flying thousands of extra kilometers. For the aviation industry, it's a quadruple whammy. Flights are longer by 2 to 4 hours. Thousands of additional tons of jet fuel are being burnt, and global flight schedules have been thrown into chaos. And the crisis doesn't stop there. Jet fuel prices are soaring as markets fear supply disruptions linked to the conflict. Prices have hit their highest level since 2022 and are rising way faster than crude oil. Airlines are facing massive operating pressure. Fuel is already the single biggest expense for most airlines. Now, it's becoming the most unpredictable one as well. Airlines in India are feeling the turbulence directly. Flights connecting India to Europe, the US and Africa often pass through West Asian airspace. Now, airlines are scrambling. IndiGo has been forced to cancel most of its lucrative European and Gulf routes. Air India, SpiceJet and Akasa Air are also taking a significant hit. Reports put IndiGo's daily losses at 4 to 5 crore rupees. For SpiceJet, the figure is lower, 25 to 35 lakh rupees a day. Both airlines are listed, and since hostilities began, their market capitalization has dropped by nearly 11%. Air India is also facing up to a 40% operational impact. Meanwhile, Indian airlines have been launching rescue flights for stranded passengers across West Asia. Tourists, business travelers, migrant workers, the list of those waiting to leave the region is long. For airlines, these operations are expensive, but essential. Flights must operate despite their own economic turbulence, because when war shuts down the skies, it's ironically the airlines which carry the responsibility of bringing passengers home. Bureau Report, Business Today TV.
So what's the current situation as far as flight ops go, and particularly in the Middle East to India? Let's focus on the flight movement that's taking place right now. As far as Oman Muscat to India is concerned, that's fully operational. All flights are back to operating into Oman. Largely the airspaces there have been fully cleared, opened up. As far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, Jeddah has become a crucial point of transit, especially for those in UAE. Many of them are attempting to get to Jeddah so they can travel into India. The first few days, this is where you also had many of those flights going in to pull out stranded Indians. But now this air route fully operational. Dubai, UAE to India, there are only special flights right now. So IndiGo, SpiceJet, Air India, etc., they are operating some flights, and that is largely to bring back stranded Indians, nothing more. The likes of Emirates not functioning just yet. Abu Dhabi, UAE to India, not operational, but we can confirm for you the latest update, which is that Etihad has said that there will be partial functioning special flights that will be allowed. So partly opening up Abu Dhabi, Dubai is expected to follow suit. In the United Arab Emirates, in Sharjah, not operational right now. And that's because largely in parts of UAE, the airspace remains closed as a precautionary measure. There is, in fact, a fear that there could be more drone strikes, missile strikes, which is why right now you will see that most flight operations from UAE to India or anywhere else remains either fully closed or only partially functioning. In Kuwait, let's get you a sense of what's happening in Kuwait City. Kuwait to India, flight operations taking place? Not really. It's not operational right now. The next 24 hours will be crucial to see if that could happen. Similarly, Doha in Qatar to India, it's not operational. Qatar has closed its airspace completely. And the last communication that came in from Qatar Airways did suggest that they're not opening up right now. It could take a couple of days for that to happen. Similarly, Bahrain to India also not operational at this point. Several pockets where, yes, flights are flying out of, whether it's Oman or some other parts like Jeddah, but most of the other Middle East parts, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, still not operational. The next few days will be crucial based on whether we see a toning down of Iran's counter-strikes, whether the airspace is open or not. But until then, there will be essentially the aviation industry being crippled, because the UAE and several other of these airports that we're talking about are essentially some of the most busiest airports in the world. And Israel continues its strikes on Iran, doubling down after killing Khamenei in Tehran. Israeli forces have now struck Khamenei's underground bunker as well. Israeli forces have said that about 50 jets have conducted these strikes that have taken place in the underground bunker of Khamenei. These are hidden spots, essentially, details of which are supposed to be unknown. And yet now Israel, with intel, has managed to identify these secret bunkers, underground bunkers, and they are being decimated, destroyed by Israel. Heavy airstrikes that have been conducted in the Iranian regime's leadership compound in Tehran. That's the footage that's been released by Israel, where you see massive explosions taking place. Again, precision strikes in locations that's said to be underground bunkers, hiding spots for Khamenei. Of course, he's been killed days ago, but attempts to also eliminate the next ring of leadership. So the suspicion for Israel is that these underground bunkers are still being used to hide leaders of importance, which is why they're continuing with those targeted strikes. Now, there have been some claims being made that the Indian Navy provided intelligence to America on the Iranian warship that was struck by a US submarine. Top government sources have responded to those claims, dismissing it, calling it completely baseless and referring to it as preposterous. Government sources have said there's no question of providing any input to the US on this and that the claims are completely baseless. The US, remember, had in fact sank this warship off the coast of Sri Lanka, triggering a reaction, also a sharp reaction from Iran. And while in fact there were some suggestions being made that Indian Navy had provided intelligence to US, government sources have completely dismissed it, saying it's absolutely baseless and completely preposterous. There was no intelligence shared by the Indian Navy with America. America had managed to identify the location of that warship on its own. Now, Iran and Israel once shared a strategic alliance under the Shah, marked by oil trade, marked by military cooperation and mutual enemies like Arab nationalists. The 1979 Islamic Revolution dramatically reversed this, turning Iran into Israel's fiercest ideological foe through proxy wars, through nuclear tensions and direct clashes culminating in recent open conflict. We break down the timeline for you of how Iran and Israel went from friends to foes.
Iran was the second Muslim majority country to recognize Israel after it was formed in 1948. Under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran recognized Israel after Turkey, despite initial UN votes against the creation of Israel. Both nations allied against common threats, including Egypt's Nasser and Soviet influence, with Israel viewing Iran as part of its periphery doctrine to counter Arab states. That was the period when economic ties flourished. Iran supplied oil to Israel via the Eilat-Ashkelon pipeline, bypassing Arab boycotts, while Israeli firms built infrastructure in Iran. El Al flew direct Tel Aviv-Tehran routes, and trade included arms and intelligence sharing. Military collaboration peaked in projects like Project Flower for missile development. Israel owed Iran nearly $1 billion by 1979 for oil and ventures. This remained unpaid amid later hostilities. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khamenei's Islamic Revolution in 1979 ousted the Shah and established a theocratic rule in Iran. It also severed all ties with Israel. The Tehran embassy became the Palestinian Liberation Organization's outpost, and Khomeini branded Israel the Little Satan, an enemy of Islam, rejecting its legitimacy. This shift stemmed from ideological opposition to Zionism as imperialism, support for Palestinians, and anti-Western sentiment. Pre-revolution Islamists like Taleghani had criticized Shah-Israel ties, but Khomeini institutionalized this hostility. Between 1980 to 1988, during the Iran-Iraq War, covert dealings persisted, briefly with Israel selling Iran $500 million in arms via Operation Sea Shell to counter Iraq, including TOW missiles and F-4 parts. Once the Gulf War was over, overt enmity between the two countries grew. Iran funded Hezbollah's formation in 1982 against Israel's Lebanon invasion, leading to the 2006 war where the IRGC aided rocket attacks on Israel. Iran backed Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and Houthis in the axis of resistance, smuggling arms via Sudan and Syria. Israel intercepted them regularly. Events like the Buenos Aires embassy bombing revealed Iran-Hezbollah understanding. Israel responded with covert operations as well. Assassinations of nuclear scientists from Iran, Stuxnet cyber attack damaging Natanz centrifuges, and airstrikes on convoys in Syria were Tel Aviv's response to Tehran's action. In the second decade of the new millennium, nuclear tensions escalated as Iran's nuclear program became existential for Israel. Khamenei called Israel a cancerous tumor, while Ahmadinejad's rhetoric fueled fears. In 2013, Israel struck Syrian sites and Iranian assets, including Parchin explosions. Iran plotted attacks on Israeli diplomats in India and Thailand. The decade-long overt operations prepared the ground for direct confrontations. By 2024, Gaza war spillover intensified as Israel hit Iran's Damascus consulate, killing IRGC generals. Iran launched 300-plus drones and missiles. Israel assassinated Hamas's Haniyeh in Tehran and Hezbollah's Nasrallah. October 2024 saw Iran's second direct missile barrage. Israel retaliated on Isfahan defenses. In June 2025, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion. Iranian nuclear and military sites were the targets, sparking a 12-day war with barrages like Iran's Soroka hospital strike. The US president wanted Iran to give up its nuclear program completely. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei rejected US President Donald Trump's demand for unconditional surrender on June 18th. Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba, southern Israel, was hit by an Iranian missile during a morning barrage on June 19th. 2 days later, US forces struck 3 nuclear sites in Iran.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan.
Operation Rising Lion came to a halt. 3 months later, at the UN General Assembly, Iran declared that it had no intention to build nuclear weapons.
Will now sign the Abraham Accords.
President Donald Trump sounded hopeful that Iran could join the Abraham Accords in future. Talks about US and Iran started, while the overt war between Israel and Iran continued. Iranian protest against rising inflation erupted in December 2025, driving it deeper into the crisis. By February 2026, US-Israel Operation Epic Fury and Roaring Lion bombed Iran, assassinating its supreme leader, Khamenei, on February 28th. aimed at a regime change. This arc from partnership to peril reshaped Middle East geopolitics, with no reversal in sight amid ongoing strikes. Bureau Report, India Today.